All right, what's up? I wanted to go over a few positions from the book Attack with Michael Tal, Mikhail Tal, by Michael Tal and Yakov Domsky. So I read through a good portion of this book a while ago, but I wasn't quite as strong, so I want to go through some of it again to just try and relearn, refresh some of the concepts and ideas. So the first chapter is called King in the Center. So I'm going to just go through two of the positions and then probably play a quick live game and then call it a day. So this game is from Nezmetinov versus Kamyshov, the Russian Federation Championship, 1951. I think Nezmetinov didn't champion, but he played, I believe, that one Sicilian that goes something like e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and then bishop b5. I think he played that because I always see that name in association with that. I guess it's more of like an anti-Sicilian. So taking a look at this position here, it's white to move. There was clearly some sort of recapture right here, so there might have been a bishop here, and white had a bishop here, black had a knight here, and white captured on f6, and then black was forced to recapture. So black still has his king in the center, which is the title of this chapter. It's King in the Center. So it's going to basically be going over how to attack with the king in the center. A lot of sacrifices are going to be on f7. That's the theme of this. So Tal writes, this can be considered a classic example of proceeding pawn sacrifice for the initiative, an energetic exploitation of a lead in development, and an attack with limited forces. So the first move for white is knight takes f7, which he gives, he notates as double exclam. So this he feels is a very strong move. However, if you analyze this with an engine, you'll see that the strongest move is actually c takes d5. However, we are not computers. Tal was known for some risky sacrifices. This one, I think, is still the position's equal even with that sacrifice and the king recapture. So he does a lot of playing with feel. He can see that he can create a pretty substantial attack. So king recaptures, and the reason he does king recaptures, if he was to do something like, say, for instance, rook to g8, preventing the capture, what would happen would be, let's see, queen to h5, and now you're going to have a discovery on the king. So g6, preventing that discovery right here, and then h8, exclam. So this is also bad. If we take a look at this position, yeah, it's pretty crushing for white right now. I don't know if he actually has the capability to castle like the engine's recommending. I haven't gone through the entire game. So if he couldn't castle, he'd probably be even worse off. So that being said, king recaptures. And then we still get this queen to h5 check, which is the whole point of that. King to e7. We don't otherwise, if you were to go back here, we have all sorts of ideas with the rook coming in, and it's just going to be pretty nasty. So rook, king to e7, c takes d5, and can't recapture with the pawn due to this the pin. So pushes e5 to prevent that rook from coming in on the e-file. And then we get f4, trying to open these lines against the king. So with the king in the center, you're going to want to open as many lines down the center as you can. So he says, Tal mentions pawn structures can be broken up by a direct blow by a sacrifice at e6 or f7. The offensive then proceeds either along open central files or else along the h5, e8 diagonal, which we can see right here. And then we can also see we're opening lines against the king. If it had along the h5, e8 diagonal, if it had been weakened beforehand, this often serves as a prompt for the attack, or also the a2, g8 diagonal. So your attacks are going to come across here. You're going to sacrifice either on these two squares and then use these two diagonals to attack. Is kind of Tal's methodology for this section of the book. So that's the mindset. So f4, clearly we're trying to open these files along the king. We can bring another rook in here. It's getting nasty really quick for him. So after f4, queen takes d5, and this is going to allow the queen to have more control over this fifth rank, which is where a lot of the action is going on. Specifically, this e5 pawn is now a central piece where we're exhibiting a lot of our pressure. So queen takes d5, f takes e5, and then we have f5. So again, trying to keep this file closed at all costs, because otherwise things are just going to start falling so rapidly with the rook coming in and the queen being able to come into the second rank. It's just going to be a disaster for black. Not that it already isn't. This is looking pretty grim at this point. So f5, e6, right here. King to f6, and now h4 exclam, giving us this this queen cutting off this area, this section right here, and this spot is this is covered by the pawn as well. So looks like we are threatening mate with that move. So yeah, preparing mate at either f7 or g5. So either right here or right here. So pretty nasty attack he's got going. So black has to find some counterplay. He has bishop c5 check, king h1, queen takes h6, queen h6 check, and it's pretty much game over at this point. I mean, the queen now is going to be lost with no recapture, so it's not even a rook for a queen at this point. So let's see what the engine evaluates it. Yeah, checkmate in 8, forced mate in 8. So that is game over. All right, fun stuff. Well, all right, so that's that position right there. Let's take a look at this next position right here. So again, we're going to want to do something sacrificing either here or here, either e6 or f7, and then coming across these two diagonals for the attack. So that's going to be the motif, I'm assuming. Tal writes, by a temporary pawn sacrifice, black appears to have gained a good counterplay on the g file, right here, and is intending at the least after, let's see, 17, move 17, f3. So knight f3, knight takes h4, queen takes h4, b5, starting to march down towards the king. Then a3, preventing another move here with tempo on the knight, forcing the knight to move, and then the queen can come in. This move right here, a3 prevents that pawn from being able to do that. Bishop b7. Let's see. Bishop come into here to b7 to complete his development, and more important, create the conditions for a counterattack, particularly on e4. So with this coming in, this knight here, we're starting to prepare an attack on the isolated pawn. So all this would be right were it not for the fact the black king is still in the center. And that white has the possibility of, quote-unquote, inviting it to face the storm. So it's going to be one of these two sacrifices. So this game is between two players, Kuprachik and Grigorian, which we know Grigorian from the variation, the Queen's Game Declined, right? It's a super annoying variation. I think that's where it's d4, d5, c4, knight c6, I think. Is that? Let's take a look real quick. Or is that someone else? Chigorin. Okay, Chigorin. Not Gregorian. So scratch that. So white plays knight, takes f7, and this is from Leningrad in 1974. King recaptures, and Tal has the note. If we were to do the intermezzo of knight takes h4, queen takes h4, then king recaptures, it doesn't really change much because after h7 check, let's see, can't be right, can it? Oh yeah, h7 check, because this knight is pinned with this rook. Rook g7, bishop h5, and then I'm assuming king is going to have to return to f8. Yeah, king f8 to protect this. Queen h8. Then rook g8. Then we're probably going to have what? Rook takes on f6. Bishop takes right there, and that looks like mate. Right? Yeah. So yeah. So that, let's see, is this force mate, I think. Oh yeah, it's force mate in 3, so it's not going to help. So king recaptures, bishop takes f6. Again, we're going to be opening lines on the king file. Bishop recaptures, d5. Ooh, exclam. This, let's take a look at let's take a look at what happens if black is to recapture right here. Then we bring the knight in, and it looks like the queen has to come in, because if we were to do something, say for instance, like let's push b5, the rook comes in, and looks like it's a forced mate. So queen is going to be forced to recapture. This rook d5 move is pretty rough. So let's see. Rook d5. Black plays b5, trying to get some counterplay. Hoping to be able to get this b4 pushing because they have this rook here. So it's already looking pretty nasty. So if instead they were to play, say, queen to d8, we would have white now has both rook to g5 and also 5 right here, which looks pretty nasty as well. Let's see. Yeah, so and then also let's see, if rook takes d6, so we have the queen protecting it. Queen e7, knight d5, e takes d5, rook on d takes f6, check, queen takes f6, rook takes f6, check again, king recaptures, queen d6, check, which is good enough to win. So let's see what this position comes out to. Yeah, that's pretty good for white. We have all these open lines on the king. The rooks aren't connected still. It doesn't have a good place to come in to connect these rooks. It's gonna be pretty nasty. So we have. Sorry, let's delete from here. So is the move that's played, and then e5. Again, want to open these files best as possible. It's d takes e5, and then rook takes f6 check, king takes f6, knight to e4 check, 7, queen f2 check, king g7, queen f6 check, king h7, knight to g5. Always when you see the queen and knight working in tandem, that's always devastating for the king, because the knight is able to sit on the same color as the queen and attack the opposite colors around it. So say this knight is now on a dark square, the queen's on a dark square, able to defend it, yet the knight is able to control the light squares while the queen is controlling the dark squares. So the amount of coverage you get is just tremendous with those two. So those are always good pieces for giving check. So we have knight g5 check, there king h6, and rook d3, clearly dropping down to come in here. Queen e1 check, bishop d1, allowing our rook to still come in. Queen to h4, rook h3, queen takes h3. We actually get f7 check, this little intermezzo. f7, king to h7, g takes h3, d7, connecting the rooks, though at this point it's already pretty late in the game. Let's see. I mean, he's only up, I mean, material-wise, 2 rooks for the queen is the 2 rooks are a little than a queen in a lot of scenarios. In some scenarios, then we've got the 2 minor pieces, and white's really only up a pawn, except we have these double isolated pawns right here. So those are weak. We have double isolated pawns here as well. However, king safety is going to be the main concern, and also attackers versus defenders. So we've got a very, very strong attacker right near the king. So although material, we may be about equal, a pawn or 2 difference, this is just such a tremendous advantage for white. Just positionally, the pieces that are surrounding the king are coming in for the kill. He's starting to weave a mating net. Pieces, all these squares covered. It's getting pretty rough. So bishop d7, h4, rook g7, h5, knight to f4, bishop f3, and then knight d5, queen h6 check. King is forced to g8, queen h8 check, king takes f7, queen takes a8, and so white is going to win now. It's white's up the exchange, and the king's just black's king is in a terrible position. So let's see what the engine gives it. Yeah, it's 4 points. So essentially a minor piece and a pawn, or about a rook up for white. So that's where we're at. And then I think I'm going to play do a quick 5-0 blitz game, and then call it a day. Hopefully my opponent will move soon. All right, we're going to play the English. I like the Bremen's reverse dragon when I face the English. He's not going to let me do that. However, I'll still open the center up. Go ahead and pre-move that recapture. Now I have a nice, strong, centralized queen. I like this already. Okay. A lot of times, it's called the reverse dragon because typically white will play g3, fianchetto. Oh, sorry, fianchetto the bishop. But instead here, white opts to play this position. So I'm just going to go ahead and get castled. Typically, the bishop comes to here or here. I'm not sure where I want to put the bishop. I also like putting pressure down these dark squares. Not sure how much I like this move yet. I'm going to go ahead and place the bishop here just so that I have some counterplay later with that move right there. I'll also maybe possibly bring my queen to e5 at a later date. Maybe not. So here we go. It's going to get castled. Let's see, I wonder if I could have played this, but then he's got this bishop move right there. All right, let's start opening up a little bit. I want to be able to get this e4 push in and start using my my pieces to generate an attack down here. So let's see. Attack this hanging pawn, put pressure on his king. I want to get my light squared bishop developed. I could potentially even develop a light squared bishop here now with this queen bearing down here, forcing, maybe potentially forcing a exchange and weakening his light squares, weakening his knight here as well. Maybe some thoughts of a sacrifice on that square. We'll just see how it plays out. Okay. I'm just going to defend, I think, with the bishop. There's no sense in hiding my king. Okay. Now I think this might be a poisoned pawn right here. Maybe not. Let's see. So I could acknowledge his attack right here. I am low on time. 2.5 minutes. Acknowledge his attack, or I could bring this rook here, kind of putting his queen out of play, making him decide what he wants to do with it. I think I'm going to do that. I'm sure it's a poison pawn. I don't want to calculate, nor do I at the time. If this was a 15-15 game, I would have taken more looks at possibly a6. Potentially, we have knight over here to a5. All sorts of things. However, I'm just going to play it safe. I still have all this stuff going on. I like that his queen's over here on the queen side. It's not really doing anything. Yeah. Now, we still have this hanging pawn right here. We could recapture this. I think I might like to do that, actually. Pick up a pawn. All right, I don't have much time. I'd like to bring my queen over to h4 and then push e4, because then I'll have this knight right here. I'm sorry, not knight. I'm sorry. I'll have this bishop attack right there. Which that is pretty sweet, I think. All right. I like that his light squares have been weakened. I have this move at any point. I have this. I'm going to bring... All right, I think I'm going to just bring the queen down, or maybe up to right here. And then I want to bring the knight here, threatening this, and then get rid of that light squared bishop and start plotting mate threats over there. So I'm going to have to speed up a little bit. I don't want to lose on time, which I might. So that is pretty neato right there. Let's just go ahead and recapture and bring the knight here. Okay, let's do that. So I want to bring the knight into here, then into there. Okay. Let's go ahead and kick this queen. This can drop. No, this is not hanging. I don't know what I was thinking, but this piece is hanging, this pawn right here. All right, so can't bring this to either of these squares. It's frustrating. Drop this down here. Let's take a look at just, well, can't do that either now. Let's drop this back. We're going to lose on time, so it's unfortunate. It happens. Oh, well, thankfully, he blundered me. Wonderful. All right, good game. Thank you. So let's take a look at this game. All right. Excuse me. So yeah, that is a bunch of blunders right there. All right. So looks like we had a pretty substantial amount of blunders, mistakes, and inaccuracies. Not a good game by any means, but also pressed for time towards the end, so play does get sloppy. All right. Now let's take a look, and we'll go through and we'll learn from our mistakes. So here we had I'm not sure, something that I'm looking at right off the bat is rook to f3. I like this, I like bringing this in, but there's not enough defenders, so I'm not fully seeing, or I'm sorry, not enough attackers. I'm wondering if something as simple as a rook lift and then bringing it over to h6 is just... No, so that's not going to be it. Yeah. Dropping this back. Now let's take a look. Let's see what the solution is. Huh, interesting. I wonder why that is. So what exactly is the threat that I have here? It's this sacrifice, and if it recaptures, knight recaptures, and then I have that. All right. So let's take a look at the next one. Okay. All right, let's take a look. I don't know what this is. The solution. Then if takes, queen takes, and we threaten mate. So that's the point of this move right here. Now with this, I get this move in. That's a pretty comfortable position. All right. This one I knew I should have calculated something, but due to the time pressure, didn't really. This is an incredibly sharp position, so I'm missing almost all of this. All right, double attack here. It's pretty strong. All right, let's take a look. No? Okay. Thought I tried that move. I guess not. All right. All right. So it looks like the whole time, most of the time I was playing, I was missing this move knight h4, and that was just, you know, pretty substantial. So we had this recapture, this check right here, where we could pick up that knight. So that seems to be the tactic that we missed. All right, that's pretty much it. You guys have a good night. Take care. Bye.